Here's what every NBA team did this offseason so far. Let's start in the Eastern Conference. If this was the year 2017, the 76ers had an amazing offseason, but in the year 2024, the 76ers had a pretty good offseason. And if you don't catch the reference, I'm actually talking about the addition of Paul George. The cap space needed to sign him was made available through the previous James Harden trade to the Clippers, which also yielded 2 valuable first-round picks, unprotected in 2028 and top 3 protected in 2029. Not only is there a new big 3 in town with Joel Embiid, Paul George, and Tyrese Maxey, we got some amazing role players like Caleb Martin, Kelly Oubre Jr., Andre Drummond, and Kyle Lowry. This is a make or break season for the 76ers, and I mean that both literally and metaphorically. Next up, we have the Bucks. The Bucks made some impressive smaller salary signings. They didn't break the bank, but they did save a buck, pun intended, by signing Gary Trent Jr., Taurean Prince, and DeLon White. Basically, the Bucks are playing it conservative. They might trade Brook Lopez, but they're gonna try to run it back, hoping Giannis and Dame just stay healthy this time. The Bulls finally removed the band-aid on DeMar DeRozan and sent him off to Sacramento. While this may have been necessary, it doesn't necessarily mean it was good. Their whole offseason was kind of executed poorly, especially failing to secure any draft picks in the Josh Giddey trade and missing out on valuable assets and other deals. They may have a shot at lottery success, but this will be despite the front office's mismanagement and due to mainly tanking or just being terrible not on purpose. Their core essentially is Levine and Vucevic, but do you want them try their best and be mediocre, or do you want them tank? It's really hard to say. If there's one team that's locking in the same squad and running it back, it's gotta be the Cavaliers. Securing Donovan Mitchell's extension was a huge win for Cleveland, but keeping the same roster around him and just giving him a new coach is not going to fix the glaring issue of 2 undersized score-first guards and 2 centers awkwardly sharing the key, forcing one to play power forward. The Cavs' non-existent approach in addressing this weakness is concerning. And yes, new coach Kenny Atkinson is a great addition. However, completely ignoring the issues of Darius Garland and Jarrett Allen sharing the court with Evan Mobley and Donovan is going to raise questions about this team's ability to contend. Yes, Spider-Man will provide some stability in the short term while they have him locked down in contract, but the front court and back court logjams aren't going to fix themselves no matter how much Spidey sense you have. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, and the Celtics certainly took that advice. They are extending Jason Tatum, Derek White, and Uncle Sam. Al Horford is not retiring. Everything looks good in C-Town, but there's one big giant X factor, and that's actually the franchise owners potentially selling the whole team to someone else. This could be really good or really bad, just kind of depends on who ends up buying the team if the sale goes through. And yes, who is the owner is extremely important for the franchise top to bottom. A bad owner who puts his personal interests over what's best for the team can definitely cause negative impacts, and vice versa. A good owner who puts the team first can cause positive impacts. For the Hawks, we knew it was either going to be Young or Murray. Obviously, the Hawks aren't just going to give up on Young. They traded Murray, and for what it's worth, they did acquire some valuable assets in return, like Larry Nance Jr. and Dyson Daniels. However, there are questions remaining about their draft choice. Zachary Ricochet has a lot of potential, and I'm rooting for him, but there's a lot more questions too, and it's not just potential here. Yes, he's 6'9", but he might be a shooting guard. Will the Hawks just force him in the front court because he's tall? I don't know, and I hope that's not the case. The Heat, more like the cold. They really lost more than they gained. Here's what happened. They lost Gabe Vincent, Max Strus, and Kyle Lowry over the past few seasons, and in return we have Alec Burks and Terry Rozier, which aren't bad, but I really don't think they offset the talent loss. They're still hesitant to trade Jimmy Butler, but they're also kind of hesitant to commit to him, so we're like in this weird limbo on what's going to happen with Jimmy and the Heat, or really what's going to happen with the Heat in general. This is very un-Pat Riley-like. We usually see some big chess moves here, but it seems like the Heat are playing checkers right now. And if the Heat are playing checkers, the Hornets are playing chutes and ladders. Yeah, they snagged Josh Green, a solid defensive guard, for free, which was a good move. Miles Bridges' contract, however, was an overpay, considering his inconsistent defense and average shooting, though it declines in salary each year. Other than that, this franchise is just praying that LaMelo Ball comes back in full health and he never gets injured again. The Knicks made a really bold move by trading for Mikal Bridges, giving up 5 first-round picks and 1 first-round swap. While this may seem excessive for a non-all-star, Bridges' value, durability, and fit justify this gigantic risk of a trade. Additionally, his acquisition likely influenced Jalen Brunson to re-sign at a discount. However, the center position remains a concern, with questions about Mitchell Robinson's health and what's going on with Julius Randle. We don't know yet, but soon we might or might not. This is just Knicks basketball at the time of this upload. Moving on, we have the Magic. The Magic made sensible moves, including signing KCP and retaining key players on tradable deals. The Jonathan Isaac renegotiation and extension was particularly smart on the franchise. However, they didn't significantly improve their roster from a talent perspective. But it's not like they need to. They had a young core who just came off of, while a first-round playoff exit, a very well-performing season last season overall. And the Franz Wagner extension, while potentially risky, the dude deserves his pay. Hats off to him. The Nets basically did the opposite of the Knicks. They gave up Mikal Bridges for a bunch of picks in return. This move, coupled with regaining their own 2025 and 26 picks from the Rockets, positions Brooklyn well for a rebuild, which means next season may not be great, but the future certainly could be. The clever structuring of Nick Claxton's contract and the acquisition of Zaire Williams is interesting for the future to come. That future could take a while, but the long term does look pretty bright. The Pacers made small changes, replacing Jalen Smith with James Wiseman and securing Pascal Siakam's extension. Obi Toppin's new deal and the potential re-signing of Andrew Nembhard solidify their young core, but again, there isn't too much change, but also there kinda shouldn't be. Tyrese Halliburton has not reached his true prime yet, so it's not fair to have any drastic changes. Let's see what his ceiling looks like first. The Pistons love to burn money. They should be burning rubber considering their name is Pistons, but hey, it's not up to me. The overpay of non-shooters like Ron Holland and Asar Thompson is one thing, but signing Tobias Harris and Tim Hardaway Jr. also overpaying them? I don't know what this franchise is trying to do, but honestly, what worse could actually happen? They already had like very terrible seasons. I don't know what to say here. I hope I'm wrong, but this has just been Pistons basketball for quite some time. The Raptors did what everyone expected them to do. They signed Emmanuel Quickley and extended Scotty Barnes. While Quickley's contract appears large, its structure is manageable. Barnes was a necessity. Again, this was predictable, but hey, nothing wrong with that. The Wizards had a typical rebuilding offseason, trading Denny and signing veterans like Jonas Valanciunas and Sadiq Bey. However, their draft choice of Alex Sarr over more immediate impact players raises some questions. With lack of a true point guard to support Sarr's development, Washington's rebuild remains a work in progress. Moving on, we got the Western Conference, and let's start at the bottom. It's the Clippers, or what is left of them. There's like no clear plan, and they lost Paul George. I really don't know what else there is to say. They don't even have Russell Westbrook anymore. They're about to get a new stadium, if only they could get a new team with it. They're left with limited future assets and a roster that may struggle with injuries and competitiveness. The Clippers seem to be stuck between contending now and planning for the future with little direction. They might end up having neither of those, honestly. Next up is the Memphis Grizzlies, and they definitely rolled this offseason just like Zach Edey rolled his ankle. Hopefully he will be healthy and ready to go for the season, which should be the case. It didn't seem like a serious injury, but this is pretty much the offseason for the Grizzlies. And if you were expecting them to do more this offseason, just remember their season last season is not something you want to reflect their overall talent as a roster. There was a lot of players who weren't allowed to play, a lot of injuries. Let them go fresh with a full set of health. Let's see how they do with the new draft pick. Next up, we have the Utah Jazz. Hopefully they aren't playing the Blues. They did great drafting Kyle Filipowski, Isaiah Collier, and Cody Williams. But it's hard to say how their offseason was as a whole because we don't know what's going to happen to Lauri Markkanen as of this upload. If they trade him, if they keep him, it's really hard to judge. We're going to have to set this team on the side until we get more information. The Kings are definitely going for the throne, and they best not miss. By adding DeMar DeRozan, they're pretty much saying they're not here to take the slow and steady route. They're going full throttle. It's a sprint. Let's see if they make it to the finish line. This could be really good or really bad. The Lakers certainly connected on Dalton Connect. pun intended. And if LeBron is so great, why isn't there a LeBron 2? Oh wait, there is. Not much really to say here roster-wise. They drafted 2 rookies. If one of them wasn't LeBron's son, there wouldn't be a lot of headlines here, other than the fact that Dalton might be an underrated pick. Next up is the team that lost the most recent finals, and finals loser teams usually have the most emotional off seasons, and this is definitely the case for the Mavericks as they replaced Tim Hardaway Jr. with Klay Thompson. Quentin Grimes and Najee Marshall bring new dimensions to this roster. The Mavericks improved their offense, but they will need to adapt defensively. Unfortunately, defense was their biggest issue in the finals, so I don't know if they fixed their biggest problems, but hey, this will be a fun team to watch. I hope Klay can fit well on this new team. The Nuggets let Kentavious Caldwell-Pope leave the roster, and Russell Westbrook, wink wink nudge nudge, is a free agent who wink wink nudge nudge might sign with the Nuggets, but wink wink nudge nudge, we don't know that yet, so I can't say that for certain. If this was 2015, I would say that's awesome, but it's 2024, so I don't know how amazing this will be, but hey, 2 triple-double machines on the same team is nothing to scoff at. We could finally see the well-mythical quintuple-double. The Pelicans added DeJounte Murray, which is amazing if this was NBA 2K, but in real life it kinda complicates the roster, especially with a lack of a clear path to trade Brandon Ingram at this point. The team faces potential imbalance and financial concerns if they can't move Ingram. They need to make a choice here. Are they gonna bite the bullet or just try to mesh this thing together and hope it works? I don't know what they're gonna do, but let's see what happens. The Rockets drafting Reed Shepherd at number 3 is a huge positive for this franchise, given their need for shooting to complement their athletic guards. The playerless trade with the Nets, while risky, could offer long-term value with potential high draft picks. It's hard to judge a young team on how well they did in the offseason, considering you don't expect a young and up-and-coming core to make drastic changes as a whole. We gotta see how this team does once they hit their prime. Moving on, we've got the Spurs, and before we begin, we gotta congratulate Dom2K for predicting that Chris Paul would eventually end up on the Spurs. He predicted this about 7 years ago. Outside of that, there's not much to talk about here, but again, with young up-and-coming cores, you don't expect much drastically. You want to see how the core does once it's at its prime, then you decide whether to tear it down or make big changes. The Suns did what they could, given that their hands were kinda tied. Adding Monte Morris as a point guard and Mason Plumlee as a backup center is nice, Ryan Dunn and Royce O'Neal contributing valuable depth. However, the Suns didn't make major changes and still face concerns about their roster, especially at the top level. Yes, the Mike Budenholzer hiring is expected to raise the team's consistency. Is Devin Booker happy? He looks lighter, but is he happy? Is Kevin Durant happy? He looks older, but is he happy? Is the Suns' future bright or dim considering they are the Suns? The Thunder had an electrifying offseason by trading Josh Giddey for the GOAT Alex Caruso, enhancing their perimeter defense significantly. With both Caruso and Lou Dort, they also added Isaiah Hartenstein, who provides valuable depth as a center with a team-friendly contract. The selection of Nikola Topic at 12 in this draft was promising despite some of his injury concerns. Overall, OKC had a great offseason, a great previous season. Hopefully that translates to a great next season, aka this upcoming season. The Timberwolves made a bold move by trading for Dillingham, aiming to address their luxury tax issues by finding a young player to grow with Anthony Edwards. Kyle Anderson's departure is definitely a loss, but it was manageable given his shooting issues. Tim Conley's uncertain future with the team adds another layer of instability. Overall, the Timberwolves offseason was a mix of risk and reward with a focus on balancing the roster and salary cap. Next up is the Portland Trail Blazers. The trade for Denny addresses a need for perimeter defense and adds a young player on a favorable contract. However, the team still has veteran contracts that don't align with their rebuilding goals. This franchise needs to make a choice. Are they going with a full rebuild, or are they really going to try to go for their best and become a mediocre playoff team, aka a first round exit? What are they going to do with their Jeremy Grant contract? That's basically what I'm asking here. And last but definitely not least, the Golden State Warriors. I don't really know how to end this because the Warriors is still a big question mark. Is the dynasty over, or is it going to reshift and show us something new? Obviously, the loss of Klay Thompson is a very big emotional loss, but I'm not going to judge this team emotionally. Logically, it may have been time to move Klay. Adding Buddy Hield is really nice, and hey, here's the biggest what if. Is Lauri Markkanen going to be a Warrior by the time the season starts? We don't know yet, but it's certainly a possibility, and that's why this team is kind of hard to judge for now. So here's what every NBA team did this offseason so far. Let me know who you think had the best offseason and who had the worst. Don't forget to dunk on that like button and subscribe with notifications turned on. I'm Rebound Rewind, and I'll fast forward to you later.